Hi everyone, what you're about to listen to is an interview that I took in person while attending the Crypto Commons Gathering Conference in Austria in August 2021. The conference itself was a wonderful experience where people of a lot of different backgrounds and political ideas were able to discuss openly and safely about how crypto can intersect with fostering the commons. What you'll notice from these interviews is that these differences in thought are sometimes apparent because we all come from different places, and what was honestly refreshing about the experience is that we could do it in a supportive environment. This was probably one of the most receptive audiences in crypto to socialism, which was really great for me. Also a heads up is that you may notice sometimes that the audio was clearly recorded in the house that we were all staying in, which wasn't the best place for recording, but we did the best that we could with what we had. A lot of the interviews will also likely feature in the documentary that I'm making about the world of crypto and its potential futures with a friend. A big reason I was able to make it to this conference was thanks to all the support I received from patrons, so if you find the work that I do important, I hope you'll consider helping out starting at $3 per month on patreon.com/theblockchainsocialist. Well, we're here again at the Crypto Commons Gathering, and for this interview, I have Jaromil, and he's working with the Dyne project, so we'll get into that. But maybe, I know you have a very interesting history, so for people who don't know you, I think it would be really good if you can give people what is your background and how you came to, why you're at this Crypto Commons Gathering.
Okay, yeah. Well, if I'm perhaps to go 20 years earlier than my engagement, so when Dyne was born. I used to be an activist back in the 99-2000 after the BBS time, and I quickly realized that the work as a software developer was boring. So I engaged into activism, and at that time the broadest, let's say, international movement was indie media, for independent media. And already I was involved into doing software for free radio stations on the internet. So the dream that dragged me in was the fact that people could broadcast their own media, just like podcasts, like yours. The downside of the dream is that there is not only your podcast on the internet, I very much like the socialist attitude and much less other media. So it was, let's say, nowadays we can call it a bit of a naive dream, but still I think that free speech is an important principle. Because I like people to be able to distinguish between spam and real content,
right? But
still the spectrum of news, of creation of sense to be very open. So that's where I come from, more or less. But I always thought that art was one of the best mediums to express ourselves. And not to give answers to people, but to pose questions, to let them think about questions, situations, dramas, tragedies, comedies. And so I engage art as a production in my work. This was in the early 2000s when I was here in Austria, where I lived about 4 years and worked in the Ars Electronica Center at the Future Lab at that time, which was a very inspiring environment. And then moved to work more in the video art field in Montevideo Time-Based Arts in Amsterdam. So I'm, all in all, I'm a hacker, but I've been in contact with artists, I've been in contact with activists, and I think many people in this meeting are at the crossroads, at this crossroads. Let's say we are a sort of liminal figure that can bring more sense into society, perhaps to be digested, some news, something new, and some thinking out of the box. That's what I try to do all my life. In 2000, I started publishing software as Dyne.org as a foundation. The first website was a Moebius band with a quote by Gertrude Stein, a rose is a rose is a rose. And then you had subsections with software inside. There was no marketing really. There was like poetry, and it has been always inspired by earlier movements like the Freaknet, the Poetry Hack Club, and the tribes that we had in Sicily back in south of Italy in 94, where I learned how to compute. And we still maintain musea of old and ancient computers. So that's also where I come from. I come from a tradition of studying also old computers, which makes, I think, modern code also better, more performant, and helps us to not reinvent the wheel. I prefer to read a book by Donald Knuth explaining me where an algorithm comes from and how many tries were making it better, rather than cut and pasting from Stack Overflow. Still nowadays I read books about algorithms that are really entertaining. And Dyne, let's talk about Dyne. Dyne is an attempt to make collective this effort and to link various people, various collectives. So it's not subsuming identities. There is a community of people that come out in their own way from the circles, and it's pretty big now because it's been 20 years around. And it's basically is around projects and principles. The principles are 3 for the foundation. This is black and white on its statute. We do free and open source software, which nowadays, fortunately, is well accepted in the blockchain world. Believe it or not, 20 years ago, it was very hard to do it, also in institutions, in the private sector. No one understood the value of free and open source software. Yeah. So that's one of the pillars. The second one is interdisciplinarity. So valuing different skills into developing software. So what we do is we develop software, but we don't develop it for a profit because the foundation is a non-for-profit. We develop it because it has an impact, a value in society, because it can move something, can disrupt, can break chains. Why didn't we call this break chains? Breaking chains, yeah, well. So empower people. So therefore, you, as a software developer, you can't be aware of what we really do the difference, make the difference for people. You need more skills. You need researchers, you need artists, you need economists, you need anthropologists, ethnographers, you need a vast branch of people. And you need to be able to work together on that. Now, you do media, you produce films and documentaries. You know, it's not done by just one person. You have to interact. Yeah. So, yeah, you know, eventually a documentary film production is very, very big. And the coordination and the communication may become even the biggest work for some people. So yeah, that is the second pillar of Dyne, and the third one is environmental sustainability. For Dyne has meant also in the first publication that I made, Dynebolic as a GNU Linux operating system back in the early 2000s, which was a big worldwide sensation at that time. I made it run on Xbox game consoles. And the claim was that a game console is the most sold hardware in the world. So why can we only play with it? Why can't we modify it to actually run software? Which became a big thing because together with XBMC, so what is called now the Decoding project, the early founders, they managed to crack the key for signing Xbox games on the Xbox One. Okay. And we had the only 2 signed CDs that were, you know, not requiring a mod. You could just put them in, but we had no authorization from Microsoft to run stuff on the Xbox. Yeah. And it was enormously useful because Dynebolic we built in also support for the joystick, a browser, you could go on the internet. It was quite amazing. It was distributed in Africa, in India, like people could recycle the game consoles. That hardware was present everywhere. And I even got contacted by DARPA. They ran a whole investigation about my software because soldiers in Afghanistan were using it in the barracks to connect to their family and write emails because they had only Xbox game consoles there. No one thought of giving them computers to write emails to their family. Wow. So it became like a big thing. I got compliments from DARPA. They said, wow, there's no DARPA malware. Was okay with it? Yeah, there was no malware. They checked it. It was free and open source. Yeah. They probably there was more than one person that read all my code there, and I'm glad.
Was Microsoft happy about that?
Microsoft never talked to me, so I guess we don't need to talk to each other. But you know, I think that one big satisfaction for a software developer is like empowering people through stories that you know they can do things. Of course, my objective was not empowering American soldiers necessarily, but once it's free for everyone, and I'm not there to judge your situation and what brought you there and what what is your need to really talk to your family, which I think should be a universal need granted to everyone. The big satisfaction for a developer is that your code is read by people, is not only run, but it can be read, modified. People can learn from that and can distribute their own modifications. So this is also like the ethos of free software that really drags me in, is the fact that what I do is not useful only to me. Primarily, nowadays I build stuff that is useful because I use it myself, which I think is healthy, to have developers that eat their own dog food. It's the big satisfaction comes from people that really read your code, comment on it, learn, improve it, and interact on that level. Coming back to Dyne, we have done a bunch of projects in the last 20 years of existence. Since 2005 is officially a foundation incorporated in Amsterdam, where we have an office. And since 2012, we work also as a research organization for the European Commission, besides the voluntary project that we have. And the first one was Decent, about decentralized citizen engagement technologies. So we researched in the new layer of political parties in Europe, like the Pirate Party, the Five Star Movement, Podemos, that claimed and developed systems and claimed to have participatory democracy into their process. So we went investigating what were the software, how transparent were these processes, how reliable they are, from a scientific point of view. And we got dragged in. It's a fantastic success, especially what has been in Barcelona and Madrid with the fearless cities, with the election of Manuela Carmena in Madrid, of Ada Colau in Barcelona, what became a movement of a new way to think, urbanization and government. And after we applied for the first grant about blockchain research and development, which is DECODE, the DECODE project became a flagship project for the European Commission now on blockchain technology. So we developed, but we also demystified the concept of blockchain. And there we try to concentrate on ownership of data and sovereignty. Sovereignty of algorithms, which is the subject of also my academic research, means that people are able to understand algorithms and also have collective decisions about them. Meaning that not only a technical elite, a technocracy is in place, a technical elite drives the decisional process. So you need to make participants everyone. So when I develop a software and when someone uses the software, we are participants together. You're not a user, I'm not a developer. I like to see in the political process that we are on the same level. Right. And you see this reflects in the governance. You cannot put always on another level of decision, of democratic decision, those who are in charge of executive power. So I think we did pretty well. I mean, also according to those who sponsored our research. And nowadays, we have a GNU Linux distribution, Devuan, that abides to principles of minimalism, which we also very much use. That is the second ranked on DistroWatch by user reviews after Arch Linux. So it's a big achievement. We are about to release the fourth version. And that's a basic GNU Linux distribution. We have a project about circular economy, in which we are working on digital product passports and material passports for the circular economy to understand the life cycle of materials through also crypto, having a cryptographic authentication of graph databases. Mm-hmm. But perhaps the most interesting for the audience may be the Zenroom project that I presented here. Yeah. So Zenroom starts from a very small assumption that I started thinking about in the past years. I mean, I started coding it 4 years ago, then more people joined. That we have to stop developing software for machines to understand us and start developing software for us to understand machines.
How does that work?
Well, it's an inversion of paradigm.
Yeah.
It's focusing on the fact that humans should understand the complexity that goes beyond their screen and not hide it. So nowadays, I mean, we come out from an era in which usability was of paramount importance. Apple made a whole career out of that, an empire out of that. And, seamless design, like not seeing what goes on behind, but having immediately your thoughts read and executed by the machine. Which is fine, it's comfortable, but it drove us to adopt more complexity and to understand it less and less, and also to be in processes that we don't understand. So what I like is to develop simple but beautiful technology, simple and beautiful, to quote Schumacher, that actually allows us to understand the processes that we are in. And still it's powerful. But it should be designed and engineered in a way that we can understand it. So for the blockchain specifically, I developed a virtual machine that processes smart contracts in a human-like language. Very simple, very understandable by humans. So you can read the contract and understand what it does. Yeah. Which I think is very important, because if we are up to sign a contract, we should read it.
Well, extremely important. I think one of the things that people talk about... Like when they talk about blockchain being something that, at least they allude to it being like more democratic, it isn't necessarily democratic if the majority of people can't read what they're interacting with.
It's democratic, believe me.
It's this like, trust in the code meme, or like, code is law type, sort of, they're closely related, but like, you don't have to trust me, you just trust the code that I wrote.
Yeah.
That I'm asking you to put a bunch of money in.
Yeah.
So in the end, it's just an indirect way of still trusting, somebody else. If you don't have the same level of literacy of the smart contract, then it doesn't matter.
Absolutely. And, we can also see it in a socialist perspective, let's say.
Do tell.
The exclusion that a complex system that has, like the technical elite only able to understand it and change it, is creating a class of the cognitariat.
Yeah. That's a nice word. Nice.
It's just like the proletariat, Well, the exception, I mean, from a linguistic perspective, is different. But let's stand on this ground. Like, we have people that have a cognitively, it's not reachable, not because they are less capable, but because they come from different disciplines. So right. You have an interdisciplinary approach, and what is happening, I believe, is that what we have adopted in the blockchain discourse as a structure, a sobra-structure, which in Marxian terms is economy, is now code. Mm. And code and the tokens that will basically bring it up as the most winning point. And I'd like to be in very Gramscian terms asserting that the culture that we are skipping as a substructure, as we are leaving it as a role, as a subordinate role, is actually more important to drive where economy goes. It's more important than we think. It's at the very least at the same level. So it is not, it will bite us all if we don't include people that are cognitively excluded by the processes nowadays. If we exclude them, it will bite us all. It will not be a race for the capitalists of knowledge that go and right now they are doing an autopoiesis, because if you see, I mean, speaking about blockchain, the first blockchain that really functioned all across the world was Bitcoin.
Yeah,
had a big pressure to actually be hacked. I argue it was born together with WikiLeaks, with the WikiLeaks financial blockade, and I demonstrated that in some papers.
How do you mean it was developed?
2011, February, WikiLeaks had the financial blockade after the shooting of the helicopter in Baghdad.
Right.
So donations started flowing. Visa and MasterCard cut off their pipes without a rule by any judge.
Yeah.
And at that time, WikiLeaks decided to accept donations in Bitcoin.
Right.
At that time, Bitcoin was about 0.60 cents, and it was like an inner joke between hackers.
Yeah.
May same year, there was Forbes first page on Bitcoin. Between February and May, what happened was an enormous amount of donations in Bitcoin to WikiLeaks. And mining went also like up.
Yeah.
So it was the worldwide sensation, what some philosophers would call a kairos, a moment of rupture with the pact, of receiving donations for someone that, or a journalist organization that is doing a favor to society to a certain degree, debatable, but still debatable in a court, not, this was like not really fair treatment for the whole organization. So at that point, Bitcoin started being a project growing. And this is the origin. It's important to understand it because it's a political origin.
Yeah.
Nowadays, we are 10 years later into a proliferation of projects, which back then I also predicted. Many people didn't really agree with me, but I thought that altcoins would be exploding at a certain point. They did, not in the best way. They explode a lot of scams in our face. Yeah. And nowadays we have also systems that produce their own complexity. So I'm going back to my point now. There is an autopoiesis of complexity and of new names, new jargons, new taxonomies, new ontologies around new projects. That is they are rabbit holes. Someone I heard like, there are so many projects and everyone is a wormhole. I'm not sure I want to go in. Yeah. It's true. We are producing so much complexity and hardly they are referencing each other because marketing, oh my God, no, you need to do your own thing. And so this is not even a point we can reach cognitively. It's spam. We are spamming ourselves with constantly new projects. So we have to come to a point in which we don't leave behind people that understand much more than us about human processes. I speak as a developer, and listen to them about what is happening, because that is going to be like a useful also debate, and with a very socialist objective that I believe in, of not leaving people behind, of also cognitively including people that are left behind by this whole sensation, worldwide sensation. I'm not saying to stop it, and I also like Bitcoin as a project. I think it brought some wealth to some people. It's important to keep in mind this perspective, because otherwise, I give you, and I finish this digression, I give you what would be happening, I believe, is what is already happening to the free and open source soft world, to the GNU Linux environment, which we become a guinea pig for the big industry. And this is clear in the GNU Linux world. Right now, the big companies are offloading the risk in research and development, not only on free users, gratis users, but even on small companies. They are trying technologies and then throwing them away after 2 years, and this way they can destroy a whole small industry that is built around that technology. Nothing lasts for more than 10 years. I think I'm lucky that I use Emacs as an editor, because it's there since 20 years. It's version 27 now. But it's very hard to find things that last. Why in academia we use LaTeX? It's because it's there since 20 years, and you can be sure So I think that is the drawback. If we keep on producing this sort of noise and not link it, not produce like a consistent corpus of understanding between things, then we are doomed, because some big fish will come. Just like IBM bought Red Hat 2 years ago. It was one of the biggest, if not the biggest acquisition in the ICT sector. I think 36 billions.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a milestone, It means that now the old school, old world, is driving the agenda of the biggest GNU Linux company ever built, Red Hat. And this means something for all of us that use the GNU Linux. So this is history repeating somehow in the moment in which we will have also the blockchain space, which claims to be a very serious tool for assessing contracts and truth. That becomes a sandbox until it's in enterprise level.
Right, and that's, I think we're beginning to see that. Like enterprise is trying to get into the game for sure.
Since the very beginning.
Do you have any thoughts on, I guess, the socialist left critique of the blockchain or crypto space that it's only for right-wing libertarians and that's, you know...
Oh, Columbia and... no, I think it's playing clown. I think it's just like trying to get some clicks. Yeah, it's that's a clickbait academia. Yeah.
Yeah, it's... okay.
I believe it's a very primitivist approach, and it's also not informed because these people are themselves lacking the interdisciplinary approach to it.
Yeah.
It's you see, when you're a professor of a university with a set path in your life down to the retirement and death, it's very easy for you to criticize everything because you don't have to do anything with what you say, but
produce papers, I guess.
Yeah, eventually kids smashing the windows of banks will be just your KPI for your success because, you can turn the masses to think something else. I'm a doer, I'm a pragmatist, and I like to do stuff rather than criticize. So I think that, honestly, if also as an academic we are to be involved into this blockchain space, we have to travel through it. We have to complete our journey through an ethnographic, anthropological research, not only economical, not only macroeconomical. And I don't trust macroeconomists, really. So, that's what I think about that. And they were very quick in publishing their books and filling their mouths with judgments. And that's something that socialists should keep in mind at the anarchist lesson. Don't judge too fast. Don't be so fast in judging.
But I don't mean to criticize him too much, but I don't think Colombia is a socialist. I'm quite sure of that. Mm-hmm. So it was, I don't know, for me, at least what I've seen in like other like left-wing media sphere, like using Colombia as some sort of like experts on Bitcoin even, I thought was just very silly for me. And just like when I read the book, it really felt like he was criticizing Reddit users about like Bitcoin Reddit users rather than like anything of actual substance. It's really based on like the personalities of certain people to base an entire like conclusion about how we should be.
It's a real pity because he's also occupying the field. There is now we are in the US, so we moved into. I'm a continental philosopher, so for me it's foreign territory. But I very much like what people like David Hacken, for instance, have wrote about financialization. And when we go and talk about financialization, that is a pretty important discourse. If you tell me like the digital trend of blockchain, of Bitcoin has accelerated the financialization to a stage in which it's obvious that it's not anymore connected to the dynamic of production, I rest my hands, I rest my arguments, you're right. Actually, you can see Bitcoin, or even better, more recently, GameStop, as trolling completely the financial market, telling, hey guys, do you realize that what is written there has no relationship with what is happening there?
Right. But it's been like that for a long time.
For a long time. David Hacken wrote about this, I think, in the 80s.
Yeah.
Christian Marazzi wrote about this also in the 80s in a very profound sense. We have, actually, these are real socialists, I think, also proper academics that research and describe these processes. If you come out and say like, oh, this thing is alt-right, like, what the fuck? You want to know one thing? 4chan was not alt-right. Now everyone thinks 4chan was alt-right, but the founder of 4chan fought against the invasion of alt-right memes in 4chan at the very beginning. This story is told by some collectives that, like Cluster Duck and some collectives from Italy that drove the story. So how can you say that a project is like, has to be banned because, these are Nazis? Like, before you really go through the thing and its history.
Right.
So, yeah.
It's a bit of nihilism, maybe, and a bit of like, I don't know, afraid of wanting to explore the uncomfortable spaces, maybe on the surface.
Yeah.
But maybe could you quickly talk about the DECODE project? I think it's probably the most salient project for maybe people to know about. Dyne
it can be found online. There's a lot of materials, interviews. So it was led by my colleague Francesca Bria. She's quite a star in Europe, I would say, for having said that the big mega corporations that are accumulating data about us have to be stopped and are also stealing the opportunity to build local economies around the sharing economy. So let's say moved the veil of Maya in front of everyone in this era about really like worshipping the digital innovation, while it was stealing our identities, profiling us, and we developed a discourse about the value of data and how people should be in charge, because it's touching everyone's pocket, literally. As soon as algorithms are used for assessing your possibility to become a criminal, or your possibility to get a loan, or the price of your insurance, or your possibility of getting, or the price of housing in one neighborhood or another. As soon as algorithms govern this stuff, our lives are very much affected. And the data sets that are used for this and the very algorithms, if they are not known, we have lost touch of our territory, basically. And before we realize, we are separated and dominated by something that we cannot interact with. So, to make it very simple, we wanted to break this chain of events and have tools that give people sovereignty, control over their data, but not only in an individual scale, but also in a collective scale. Because my own data, your own data, doesn't count much taken alone.
Right.
But in the context of all the people we interact with, in the places in which we live, in our professional space, all the data aggregated, and the graph that we create around ourselves, that is valuable. It's valuable for many reasons. And it will be more and more, as advertisement will become a way to assess prices of things you want. Basically, it's the control over desires and needs. And we all have desires, we all have needs, we all have something to offer.
Yeah.
So
the project is using blockchain to sort of.
Yeah, it's using blockchains more specifically to build systems that can handle data in a more GDPR compliant way, in a more compliant way also for privacy. So very, very simple example, in Amsterdam, we made a pilot. We used zero knowledge proof certificates for kids, 18 years old, to buy beer at the bar without showing their ID, because that's a breach of your privacy. Most of the cases, the bartender will not be interested in your name. But really what you want to prove is only that you are 18 years old, or in other countries 21, but not your name and your address or your age or your social number. So you show a QR code, and that's certified in zero knowledge proof by the gemeente Amsterdam, by the municipality, to be provable. We approve of your age. It's very simple, but you can improve also. And this is like all managed locally. We built, to the city to release the zero knowledge proof credential needed to scan your ID and passport. So we built a passport scanner with a Raspberry Pi, a webcam, and an NFC. People at the city of Amsterdam were really crafty with that. And we had, I have no idea how much the Meter Industrial Complex pays for those scanners all the way. We built one with a Raspberry Pi, it was less than 100 euros. And it scanned the passport and produced something, so proved that you are above 18 years old. So that's a different moment that you are producing that credential. After that is produced to you, you can go around with it and demonstrate that you are 18 years old.
Yeah, that's like the classic example that I've heard of how zero knowledge proofs are, like, why it's useful like in like an everyday interaction.
Yeah.
So, and then I guess you guys basically put that into action.
Yeah, we did also a more complex pilot. We did a petition in Barcelona. So it was a petition about digital rights, but basically we worked together with Decoding, which is a platform in Barcelona for collective decision. And Francesca Bria, my colleague, she was Elderman of Barcelona for innovation in the period in which we also drove this project. So we really tested heavily with the people from the CDIM and in Barcelona some daring visions. And one of them was that of driving technologically sound petitions driven with proper crypto. In that case, also homomorphic encryption to not see the result of the signatures before the tally, and we did petitions on a platform that used to process 75% of the procurements interacting with the infrastructure of Barcelona. So not a toy, just like a big money flow. So this was a little step and a little demonstration of steps we can do in public sector also to make things more transparent, sustainable, open source. Managed by the municipality rather than by some foreign company, and especially transparent, because procurement, oh my God, how much is going on there?
Yeah. I need to ask you this now because I ask this to everyone, but what does the crypto commons mean to you?
First and foremost, to me, means meeting people that care about the commons and are not afraid to look into the crypto box. And I found everyone is ready to do that here. I'm also happy that is not a marketing event, that people are not necessarily selling something to each other, and it's more of an exchange. It takes time for become that. For sure, is not a roadshow, a corporate roadshow.
Yeah.
Caring about the commons has a tradition, from Ostrom, fortunately known as a Nobel Prize, and many more economists like Andre Gortz, for instance, and philosophers that have worked around the principle of commons. So not depletion of a resource, but fostering and facilitating the flourishing of a society around that resource with a sharing attitude and with a responsible attitude about using the resource. And we are in the middle of mountains and forests, which were the first places where the commons principles were applied, in handling the wood that will be cut and the planting of new trees. So I think it has a perfect setup. And
didn't make that connection before. That's good. Nice. Well, yeah, I think thanks a lot for taking the time. I could talk to you for probably a lot longer than I will after this.
Also without a camera.
Yeah. But thanks a lot, Jaromil, for coming on, and we'll stay in touch.
Thanks. I'm a big fan. Thank you.